What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So Sony is heading into October with a big-time release, that being Spider-Man 2, and it appears that they posted up information a bit early, as they then promptly deleted it. But the internet doesn't forget, so we'll take a look at what Sony had to say here today. Also, we are going to be talking about one talented developer who appears to be teasing some big Switch reveals, maybe ahead of a September Nintendo Direct, and we'll also be talking about Gamescom, as that's coming up pretty soon, next week. Seems like Jeff Keighley is working to set expectations, so if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton, and if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're gonna start today with Wave 2 Xbox Game Pass games for the month of August. This posted up over on news.xbox.com, and we could see this starting at the top. Of course, Everspace 2 Cloud and Xbox Series X and S is already available, so check that out. Now, coming up starting tomorrow, August 17th, we have Firewatch, Cloud, Console, and PC. And then August 18th, we have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Cloud, Console, and PC. That is a day one release into the service. And I looked at this as I do know, like RGT, I think Nate, they seem to like Friday the 13th. This kind of in that same asymmetric horror kind of multiplayer game. I might try that one out. We'll see. And then obviously the big one, Sea of Stars, August 29th, Cloud, Console, and PC. And then we also have Gris, that's Cloud, Console, and PC on September 5th. So just a bit of an update here with Wave 2. And I guess the big one, the day one release next to Sea of Stars, of course, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that kind of playing into the multiplayer side of the services for Game Pass, but maybe I'll check it out, as after all it is going into Game Pass. I'll set to fire up a game with the RGT, Nate, and maybe a few others. Also, sticking with Xbox, they have now introduced an enforcement system that's kind of like the 3 strikes and you're out rule. In this case, though, it's 8 strikes and you're suspended for a year. We can see this posted up once again over on news.xbox.com, where they say at the top, the new enforcement strike system educates players around enforcement severity, cumulative effect of multiple enforcements, and the total impact on their standing. There's also a nice little chart here to explain everything, where if you get 1 strike, it's a 1-day suspension, and then same with a 2-day, and then it just kind of stacks on top of each other. We get to 3 is 3 days, 4, 7 days, and then it just kind of exponentially grows there up to basically a year if you get 8 strikes. And they did mention that it's not automated anyway, so as we know, there is the function of being able to record voice chat and things that are going on to basically report a person in game, and then they will review it like an actual human will. So in that case, that's good, because back in the day with the 360, some people would report other players if they just lost to them. Like, they just weren't happy. I'll show them. I'll just say that they're unsportsmanlike and I'll report them. And a lot of times it would be automated and the person would be done for like 24 hours or something as an automated strike. So at least in this case, they will have to have humans look over it. And it's just Microsoft, trying to circumvent a lot of the bad experiences people tend to have in Call of Duty lobbies. But, well, it's been kind of like that since 2008, and we're still kind of dealing with that. But I guess now you could technically set up a party that you and your friends get into, and then you don't really have to talk to anyone online at that point. They don't want to. Oh, and check this out. We had some awesome artwork that was posted up for the Arkham Trilogy that's heading to the Switch on October 13th. You can see that here posted up over on X.com. This is from the Rocksteady Studios account, which it looks really, really cool, I will say. But again, this trilogy coming October 13th, and I'm pretty confident Asylum and City will work fine on the Switch. I'm very, very curious around Arkham Knight, as we know that had some struggles, we'll say, not only on consoles, but definitely on PC. So them optimizing and getting it onto the Switch will be an interesting one, I'm sure, for people to go over, like Digital Foundry, but then also maybe to overclock the Switch for and see what else they can get out of it, maybe with modern vintage gamer. So a lot of questions there, but we're heading up on that October 13th. And I will say, Asylum, City, those are awesome experiences. I think Night out of the 3 is probably the worst one, but it's still really good. So you can't go wrong, provided they all run well enough. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Spider-Man 2. This, of course, coming out October 20th, and there's a lot of hype around this, obviously, with the trailer they showed off most recently, with Venom being front and center, and Yeah, Peter Parker having the symbiote suit. There's a lot of exciting stuff around that, especially with story implications in that. So now seeing some information get out there a bit early from Sony when it comes to accessibility, and even some confusion that's kind of sprung up around graphical options for this game. First though, let's take a look at this over on Insider Gaming, where some of the confusion stemmed from, but also where the information was cataloged, as Sony did delete this after it was up for maybe 15 minutes or so, but we can see when it comes to the accessibility side, they will have for audio screen reader support, which will read aloud all on-screen text and menus, captions, so on-screen captions, audio descriptions even are available for cinematic scenes. And then gameplay is the interesting one that a lot of people were discussing. You can choose to slow down the action to 70%, 50%, or 30% of the full speed. So I guess it'll be kind of in like slow motion, and then you can switch back to regular speed at any time. I do like some of these more creative instances of accessibility, and we've seen this across the industry, but I do know that Sony and their first-party studios have been really coming up with different creative ways to make their games more accessible to everyone, right? So sure, it's an option you can toggle on or off. I feel like I'll probably just play regular speed the whole way, but hey, if it benefits someone to play at 70, 50, or 30%, why not? Now, I do want to mention further down on this Insider Gaming page, they do have graphical mode options, fidelity and performance. So a 30 FPS mode and a 60 FPS mode, and they go over some details and such here. But I will point out that the only bit of information that Sony had actually posted and then pulled down was the accessibility stuff. Everything below that on Insider Gaming is basically pulled from Spider-Man Remastered, and I guess the idea is these new features will build off of previous accessibility improvements in previous titles, so there is a little bit of assumption there around the idea that, okay, it's also going to use the same graphical options and modes that you can pick from, which I will say Insomniac, they're pretty good at this. They typically will have like a 60 FPS mode that has ray tracing, one that doesn't, and so on. So yeah, I expect a comfortable selection is what I'll say when it comes to the graphical options. So with Spider-Man 2, all we know currently are the accessibility modes and stuff that seem to get posted up early by Sony. Oh, and just as a bonus, it does look like we had some ratings that were posted up a bit early for what appear to be more games heading to PlayStation Plus Premium, these being PlayStation Portable titles, which you can see posted up by Gamatsu, who knows the ratings, with Tekken 6 and Soul Calibur Broken Destiny. These are rated for PS5 and PS4 in Taiwan, and we have seen games rated for PSP that have not shown up yet, like Battlefront 2, for example. We're still waiting on that one, but Tekken 6 and Soul Calibur Broken Destiny, those are pretty good fighting games on the PSP, and as we've seen with most recent entries in the PlayStation Plus Premium on the PS5, they smooth out pretty well, so I think these should look pretty good too, all things considered, since it was originally designed for the PSP, and we'll add some nice variety with different fighting games going. And as to when these will be announced, it's hard to say, because some of those previous ratings that were spotted, we're still waiting for. So here's hoping these maybe get added to the service before the end of the year, but of course, I'll keep you guys updated. Next up, let's talk about Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, as we are closing in on the official reveal within Warzone for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. It's all confusing because we had these titles in the Call of Duty universe back on like the Xbox 360 days, sure, but they're just going to do it again. And in this case, they're really going to do it again because it sounds like, based on rumors that seem to snowball into nearly confirmed reports, it looks like they're going to be returning to some of those maps from Modern Warfare 2. In fact, this was posted up on X and then, as I mentioned, started to get more and more traction and backing online, where they say, as of now, every Modern Warfare 3 launch map is a remastered Modern Warfare 2 from 2009, okay, map. And wow, when this went up, there were a lot of opinions on this one, because on one hand, it is sounding more and more like they're really trying to turn this expansion into a full-fledged $70 release. It's like they just can't miss a year with a boxed Call of Duty on the shelves. Like they can't do it. And it is weird because that is a franchise that feels like it could use a gap year. But I say that, but then they go on to sell 20 to 25 million copies, no problem. So I guess it's working for them, and they don't want to miss out on that big holiday push. But in this instance, if all of the maps that show up are just older ones that are remastered, it just doesn't feel like that big new release for Call of Duty. However, there are many people who are really excited because the maps for Modern Warfare 2, again, 2009 Modern Warfare 2, are like legendary status. These are really, really good maps, and I would say better than most of the maps we have now in the current Call of Duty. And really, after seeing the excitement around the older Call of Duties kind of coming back with their servers being fixed up, and then also seeing these games jump in the sales charts in the UK, yeah, it's not too surprising necessarily that people would be excited at the idea of getting remastered maps from Modern Warfare 2. But once again, I do question the need for this to be a full-fledged release, because I just feel like we're getting to a position with the Call of Duty franchise where it's just going to be more of a platform, although it kind of already is, because you go into a menu and then you have all your campaigns set up and you have Warzone and things that branch off from that, rather than have these big boxed releases each year. At this point, you're just buying a disc that downloads it anyway. So it kind of feels like maybe we do get to that point before the end of this generation where you don't really have a boxed Call of Duty every year. You just kind of have, I guess, a digital release and upgrade for the platform that you technically own and sign into every time. And I guess that would also work to put all of the maps in one place, especially if they have plans to maybe go back and remaster more maps from the old days that, let's face it, a lot of people really like anyway. So interesting stuff there, but let me know where you fall on this one. A $70 Call of Duty, sure, that I guess would have a new campaign, but then pulling a lot of the maps for Modern Warfare 2 in 2009. Next up, let's talk about a pretty good Switch developer who's been doing many, many ports for the platform, Teasing two new projects that has people running wild with speculation as to what we could see on the system, maybe before the end of this year. Now, this post was made on X.com, and this is from Feral Interactive, and recently they released the Lara Croft collection, but before that, they had Alien Isolation, which is an interesting release because it turns out, in terms of like resolution and textures, it's better than the PS4 version. And then they also did Grid, which I thought was a cool release because it utilized the GameCube controller with those analog triggers for the racing side of things. Of course, when you push the pedal down, you can kind of feather it or just push it all the way to the floor. You're able to do that with the GameCube controller plugged into the Switch dock. So they have utilized many features of the system that no other developer really has tried to do. And now they're mentioning two other releases that appear to be coming out, saying, yet another mysterious blip has appeared and it's approaching fast. Can you crack the fiendishly cryptic clue to another upcoming release from your friendly neighborhood game devs? Now, they've marked these as Switch games, so it's not even a question of, oh, maybe this is for another platform. No, both of these are for the Switch with the little logos. One has like a dolphin on it here, which is interesting because it says over our heads, and that's the one that people are really trying to figure out right now, because I'm sure when you think of Dolphin, you go, oh, okay, it's a GameCube release. And I guess technically it could be something from that generation. Also, some people wonder if they're doing like Echo the Dolphin from the Dreamcast. But based on that, and then another port that they're teasing at, some of the things that have kind of been picked up online through speculation include maybe something from the Hitman series, like Hitman Absolution, maybe a Hitman collection, like the older ones, not necessarily like the newer ones that have come out. Or maybe Just Cause 2 or 3 that was pointed out, maybe a Just Cause collection. And then another, I guess because it's Dolphin, looking at GameCube stuff, thought about, oh, maybe they've partnered with Nintendo and they're the ones doing Metroid Prime 2 or 3. I don't necessarily know if that's going to be the case. Sure, they could be a support studio, as we saw with Metroid Prime Remastered. There were many studios listed as support, but in this case, I think that's going to stay under Nintendo's thumb. But I am definitely interested in what Feral Interactive has lined up for the Switch with two ports seemingly set up here, and consider the fact that we are going into what could be 3 big events that they could announce these at. I mean, we have Gamescom coming up pretty soon, and then Tokyo Game Show, and we very well could have a Nintendo Direct in September, because Nintendo has been doing events in September every single year for a while now. So we're kind of expecting something in there, whether it's a full-fledged Direct or a mini or a partner Direct, just something. So a lot of places, they could at least make these announcements, and just keep an eye out when we're at Gamescom or Tokyo Game Show or Nintendo with different streams to see that Feral Interactive logo pop up, and then we'll get the answer for one of these cryptic tweets or messages as to what they're working on. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Gamescom Opening Night Live. This is hosted by Jeff Keighley, and typically people get really excited for this event, and I notice most times afterwards, there's a lot of disappointment online. So I will work to set the expectation here for what you might see at this event. But I will also admit, Jeff Keighley kind of doing the rounds, also working to set expectations, which this was in an interview with VGC. We can see this posted up, where according to Jeff Keighley, this year's Opening Night Live is less about announcing brand new projects and more about giving fans updates on some of the biggest games due out over the next year. So some games that have basically been confirmed to be here includes Black Myth Wukong, which is a game that when it was first shown off like years ago, I mean, really took the internet by storm because it looked really good. And ever since then, they've been, I guess, working away to get this game ready to go. And in fact, it's rumored to be playable on the show floor at Gamescom, so keep an eye on that one. There's also Alan Wake 2, that was pointed out by Jeff himself. Stalker 2 will be there. Trying to figure out if we're gonna have a release date revealed. I think that'd be a good avenue to do so. 4A Games apparently is gonna be there, which is starting up speculation around maybe a new Metro game. And Lost Soul aside, it's kind of in the shadows right now. I wouldn't be shocked if it popped up here, but maybe that's one being saved for something like Tokyo Game Show. Either way, this is gonna air live August 22nd, 2 p.m. Eastern time, so right in that afternoon time slot. And I'm going in with mild to low expectations, as is being mentioned here by Jeff. Not necessarily a bunch of brand new big announcements, more or less updates around things you already know about, but release dates, maybe new bits of gameplay. There's a lot of stuff that could be thrown out there that would still get people pretty excited, and I would say satisfied maybe for what you expect out of Gamescom with Opening Night Live. Keep in mind, Jeff also has to keep some reveals set up for what I would argue to be a more important show to him with the Game Awards just a few months later. But I guess we'll see what Opening Night Live has in store for us next week, and of course, we'll be covering it here on Newswave the following day. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, are you expecting a full general Nintendo Direct in September? 45% say yes, 32% say no, I'm expecting a mini or partner showcase. Then 23% say no, Nintendo won't have a big general direct in September. I am expecting some sort of event in September just because that's what history tells us. But I guess it could be a mini or a partner showcase because technically Nintendo has their holiday set up pretty nicely with Super Mario Bros. Wonder in there, Mario RPG and stuff, and then some third-party games. But I guess they could announce that elusive Twilight Princess Wind Waker collection. Otherwise, if they had a general direct, I figured it'd be to start setting up the first half of 2024, as right now they are definitely focused on the holiday season coming up here. But hey, I guess we'll find out in about a month or so. But yeah, the Nintendo Direct season's definitely going to start kicking in with speculation all over the place in the next week or two. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Two Cool Tales, who says, not expecting any changes from Game Freak, as long as the games keep selling 20+ million units. Yeah, it's hard to argue against that. They just keep selling tons and tons of games, even if the quality is not great and it gets absolutely destroyed online, whether it's reviews or just on social media. Still sell 20 some odd million copies, no problem. But you do kind of look at that from the business side and you're like, are we missing out on another 10 million sold, right? That's kind of how you start to think at that point. We're not improving necessarily with these sales. So does that mean when we go to the next system that we might have a bit of a drop off there because we don't have this 130 million install size to lean on? That's the big question. So I still believe that it's in Game Freak's best interest to just get better at HD game development, and I would expect that going forward, but they certainly have to figure out logistics and things behind the scenes if they ever want to get to that point. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here. Today was Spider-Man 2 and some of the accessibility options that have been revealed a bit early. Or Feral Interactive, what do you think they have planned right now for the Switch with some of those games? And then Opening Night Live next week. What are your expectations for the event? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.